Hello, hello, and welcome back. Welcome everyone to Divine Honey Podcast. I am your host, your friend, your daily inspiration, Tamika Johnson. This show is about human experiences, and this includes thought provoking conversations and, most importantly, our Divine Honey guests that continuously come up and show us and tell us about stories about love, life, journey, and purpose. And I appreciate each and every guest for sharing their life with us. Now, if you're watching live or on the replay and you feel inspired, please leave a question, show some love in the comment section. So today we have Divine Honey guest, Josh Harris. He will be sharing with us his experience of life in between, being biracial in America. We will be discussing how multicultural individuals view themselves and how they are treated in society. And I thank Josh for coming on and sharing his experience with us. Welcome.
Tamika, thank you so much for having me. I know we've talked about it a couple times, and then when we got together in
Mhm.
Mexico, we talked about it a little bit more, and I'm glad we're finally making it happen.
Yes, yes. I'm glad you are on, and I'm glad you're talking about this topic. We do have three people in the chat. I want to. Timmy Johnson's in the chat.
Hey, Timmy.
Yeah. Um, JoJo, Mary Jo, she's in the chat as well, and Selena Malley. So you guys ask questions.
Yes, please.
Let's get into it. Now, what made you want to touch on this topic? Because we were in Mexico and we were talking about for Tim's vow renewal, and we're talking about the podcast, and you instantly knew what you would want to talk about.
Oh,
So why is
instantly.
this important?
It's been my whole life. I mean, I know that's an obvious statement, but it's such a big part of my life. Race, I don't think has the same meaning to everybody.
Mhm.
So for me, being a black man who grew up in rural Iowa with a white mother and biracial siblings, there's so many layers,
Mhm.
and it's been such a huge it's who I am. It's been such a huge part of who I am. So I instantly knew, boom, that's what I want to talk about. I want to let people know how I feel, how I think other people like me feel, how people view us.
Mhm.
So there's like we were saying earlier, there's so many layers to this, so many
So
things.
many layers. Well, let's start about how you grew up, like how it all started.
Right. So my parents met in the military. So this is in the late 80s. I was born in 90, so they met in the late 80s, 89, in Little Rock, Arkansas. So you're talking about a very So it's a very so they're both in the Air Force, which the Air Force is a very multicultural place. But you're talking late 80s. So there, Little Rock is known for some racism. So
Mhm.
you're starting to get south there. Um, my mom is 18, 19 years old, little white girl, redhead, moves down there, meets my father, has me and my brother. She told me stories about I was 6 months old. She'd be pushing me around Walmart, and some old white lady walked up to her and called her an inward lover and spit in her face because she was pushing me around. She's not even with my dad. It's just me. So, I mean, stuff started early. I'm 6 months old, getting pushed around in a cart, and my mom's getting racial slurs thrown at her. Right. So they speeded up a little bit. My parents didn't. Their marriage didn't work out. So me and my brother and my mom, we move up to Iowa, and we live with my white grandparents. Small town Iowa, 500 people. The people hadn't seen. I don't think there'd ever been a black person ever lived there prior to us. And then you have to think about my mom's family, who is from there, grew up there, raised there, generation, have never had any black people in their family. And then you got these two mixed kids moving in here, kind of shaking things up a little bit. My mom would tell me, and some of the stuff I'm going to share is somewhat personal. I don't want to offend any of my family or anybody out there, but I know my mom said that it was a little bit of, I don't know what the word is you want to use, pushback. I don't know if that's the word to use, but from like even her own father, like she is dating this black guy, and then this black guy leaves her with two kids, and then he's filling the stereotype for him to push back on her.
Mhm.
So I think it was really hard for my mom from her own family, and then obviously I'm a kid, I don't know anything.
Mhm.
I'm really young. Um, but as we grow up, we're getting older, and you start to, at some point, I don't know what the age is, you realize you're different.
Mhm.
At first grade, I remember people call me the N-word. First grade, second grade, people call me the N-word. Teachers would say stuff, or they would, and I don't know that people always even meant it in a bad way,
Mhm.
but people would say things, or they talk about slavery, and little 8-year-old girl would raise her hand and say, "Would Josh be a slave?" And
Ooh,
you feel
yeah.
so, like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's not even that she's asking a bad question.
It's a child's question.
It's a child's question.
Yeah.
And but you are so, when you're the only one, it is so uncomfortable. And I'm 7, 8 years old, and I already feel different.
Mm.
Um, some of that stuff was hard.
How did like you being at home with your grandparents, did you feel any different with them or did they treat you guys good?
No, they treated us good.
Oh, that's
I
good.
wouldn't, but it was. I still think it was hard for them.
Mhm.
Um, all they got 10 grandkids, and 2 of them are different, and they've never experienced this. They don't.
Mhm.
They treated us good, though. I don't want to say that they treated us bad. I would say, if anything, it was people outside
Mhm.
of my immediate family that would say things or talk bad about. It's weird, the things that people would say about your mom. And I don't know if it's just because she was married to a black man at one point, or
Mhm.
I don't know where that comes from. But
Yeah. As for your mom, how did she become equipped to, you know, raise black children or biracial children? Did she have to just
I don't
trial
think
and error, or was it conscious? Now it's more a conscious thought now. When people are doing this because we talk about it more. So now people are being conscious. Okay, but then you just did.
I
So
don't
what was
yeah,
your
like you said, I think as time went on, I
Mhm.
still, at 32 years old, and I love my mom more than anything. I don't know that she even knows fully now. Like, we'll have conversations. I'm like, "Or do you hear what you're saying, Mom? Like,
Mhm.
you raised 2 black kids. Like, where's this coming from?" And it's my mom loves us more than anything. Like,
Of course.
we're her everything. But even to today, sometimes she will say something or do something, and you kind of go, "What? Where is this coming from?" So that's one of the
Mhm.
things I wanted to just talk about, is like, in Iowa, especially, just because of who you're around, there's a lot. Most of my friends happen to be married to white women, and I don't know. Part of that's just proximity. So,
Yes.
um, mixed kids. Most of my friends have mixed kids,
Mhm.
uh, and that's one thing that I wish my mom knew at an early age. She didn't have social media. And
Mhm.
again, I'm still in the 90s. Interracial marriage wasn't even like a big thing. So
Mhm.
it was really new back then. Um, I think interracial marriage started to become legal in like 1967, somewhere around there. So
Yeah.
within my parents' lifetime, and as late as 2001. So I'm 11 years old. 2001, Alabama made interracial marriages legal. That's
I didn't know that.
2001.
I
You
didn't
were
know
a teenager. I'm 11 years old. So, like, it's still a newer concept. I
that.
mean,
Mhm.
there's always been mixed people, there's always been biracial people, but being accepted and okay with society is still becoming a newer and newer thing. So I just wish, and I hope that people going forward, they take time to understand. Again, my mom is a white lady, right, raising I'm two big black dudes, 6'5", 250, walking around rural Iowa. She's had a totally different experience than me, and she'll
Mhm.
never. My own mother will never even understand the things that I've seen or experienced. So just take the time. I mean, even going back to like taking care of my hair as a kid, like, learn those things. It means something. You got to understand that there's a difference, you
Yeah.
know. So
Oh, I have a couple comments in here. Brienne, she says, hello,
I
yay.
Bree.
And then Selena says, biracial kids over any other mix of race, I feel has been a big standout my in my eyes. This was the way it always has been, so it's become a little it it's sorry, Selena, it becomes like a reflex. So, yeah,
So can I ask you, I guess, is
yeah,
this person biracial?
she is. And
Okay.
her mother is white and had Selena, how many kids are in your family? There's like 7 of y'all. And her, her story is similar, to
Yeah.
yours in a way.
So, yeah, I guess I don't fully, yeah, I agree with what she's saying. Um, I feel like you're kind of almost always in defense mode, which
Mhm.
is weird just to be you. I've never, and I guess people can have opinions on it. I don't know if that's an opinion thing. I don't know if
Mhm.
race is an opinion thing, but people have their own ideas. I've never walked into a room full of a bunch of white people I don't know and felt like that I'm home. Like this is where I fit in. Like I don't
Mhm.
feel, does that make sense? Like I don't feel
That
like
makes
I
sense.
look like them. I don't feel like I do the same things as them. I don't feel like I take care of, myself the same way. I don't think we've had the same experiences. So this idea that you are 50-50, I've never agreed with that. That doesn't even make sense to me. Like it just doesn't. I'll never grasp that concept that
Mhm.
people are like, well, you're half white too. I'm like, what does that mean? There's always that joke with Dr. Umar that said half white, that don't even make sense. If you mix chocolate milk with milk, you still got chocolate milk. Like that doesn't even make sense to me. Like I'm white, and I guess I'll never, I don't understand that thinking.
Do you think you growing up, how did you get connected with your black side? And let's start there. I have another question, piggyback off that. But
So that's tough. So I didn't grow up with a father in the household. He was, my parents got separated. Like I said, I was 1 or 2 years old. He was in the military. We moved to rural Iowa, so we just didn't see him a lot. And
Mhm.
then his family isn't from Iowa either, so I didn't even see my black family until as I got older. So that was tough. I'm trying to figure out who I am. I think when I really remember kind of one, I'm using terms. I don't know if I'm always using the right term, but it makes sense to me.
Mhm.
Separate myself was like junior high. Like I remember like, okay, like just relating. Like I'd watch a
Mhm.
movie or a music video, whatever, and I felt more related to that, and I would start dressing that way, or saying some certain things, or do act in a certain way. And I think that, like I said, sixth, seventh grade is kind of, and that's when I really started hearing, junior high boys can be mean. So that's
Mhm.
when I really started hearing racial things from them. So it made me reach out to this other side, even though I didn't have any guidance or
Mhm.
someone to look up to. And I just reached out to it and wanted to be like that. I don't know if that makes any sense at all,
It makes
but
sense. It makes sense. Have you seen it was a Netflix, I don't know if it's still there, with Colin Kaepernick, and it kinda
yes,
documented, and when he just felt at home, he went to this lady's house to get
got
his
his
hair done,
braids and everything. And he just felt
he just
home.
felt at home. I felt bad for him a little, because he wasn't protected. I don't think his parents didn't mean to, they just didn't understand, but I was, like, scared for this
Oh,
child's life.
yes. And you could even see how uncomfortable his mom
Yeah.
felt being in certain places.
Mhm.
And I would say that's very spot on to kind of how I felt. Like
Mhm.
in him, I think, so he was adopted.
Mhm.
And I've had friends who were adopted, black and adopted by white families, and they weren't mixed, but they still had like an identity issue with,
100%.
you're raised by white people, you culturally are white, but you physically are not, and that's what people see you as, is physically. So yeah, I don't, that again, going back, I wish that my mom would have tried a little harder to get me involved in some of those communities, or get me involved with, I don't know what she could have done, but just
Right.
tried something, you know.
Do you think the Black community has supported you? Or what's the issues you've had with us or with the Black community and being biracial?
So the black community, I would say, for the most part, has always, especially older black people, they take you in like, come here, baby, give me a
Yep.
hug. Like they treat you, and part of that I think is generational because they grew up in a time where being mixed or black, I mean, I don't think there was a difference. I really don't. Like, you know, if you talk about the 60s and 50s and 70s, I think that black was black. You know, whether you had, they used to have the 1%, one drop rule. So I think they know that biracial people have had the same struggles as black people. So,
Yeah.
and when I say biracial, obviously I'm referring to black and white. There's obviously a multitude of biracial, you know, it's a broad meaning. But I think I didn't, again, I always know my mom's always been white, but I didn't notice people even separating me from black until I got to college. You know, my buddies would joke, I think it was like my junior or senior year, joke, oh, you're not black, you're mixed. And I just laughed it off and I didn't even take it to heart or anything. But then, you know, as I've gotten older, I realized that people are putting that separation there, like, hold up, you're not black. And I'm like, what does that mean? What do you mean? What is black? Like, what are you determining as black? Is it your physical features? Is it your ancestors? I guess I don't know. I still don't even know what people define as, like, what would you define as black?
Okay, well, it's a hard one. It's a lot of things because my views have changed. Like, okay, I was just like listening to someone talk about like Mariah Carey's kids. I mean, they look like Mariah Carey, but they do have a black father. So some people be like, oh, they're light skinned, they're not really black. There's people are saying that. And then, well, they visibly have, and we know who their father is. To me, I look at them, I could tell they're mixed race.
Right.
I think
But
it's
even she's
deeper.
mixed. Even she's
Yeah,
mixed.
it's just a lot of mixing. I think it's deeper than your looks. It's your environment, your culture. I think people have the right to identify as they see fit, but and I'm probably biased because I'm a black woman. I think especially like for the black and white, if a lot of to me biracial because they might identify as just black because of what they look like and
Physical.
might
Yeah,
get heat if they say both, but they are both.
you are
But
both.
embrace both sides.
It's
I think
hard though. You have
it's
to think about
hard.
it though. Like
It's
I
hard.
think I took one of those DNA tests. So
Yeah.
I'm about as, you know, we talked before this. So I think the average African American is between 20
Mhm.
and 30% European. That's a big percentage. You're talking about a whole ass grandparent that's white. You know,
Right.
if you were to break it down, like that's a real percentage. It's not 2% or 3%. You're talking
So,
about a quarter of you. So, you
so
know,
you back to my point. I have a quarter of European. I just said embrace both, but I can't really because so
don't
let me
relate. You don't feel
backtrack.
like you're relate.
See, it's so complicated. It
It
changes,
is.
and that's what people like. Your perspective is going to keep changing. Now that you just said that, though, I took a DNA test. I will say, okay, it's a quarter, but I have not lived as I've lived as a black woman
Your whole life.
my whole life. Like the relatives I've been around are black, so that's my
And I
experience.
think, and I'm blanket statement here. I think when black people have said that to me, I think they mean culturally
Yeah,
because I have grown up around. I mean, that's a fact. I can't. I mean, I grew up with white people. That's just what it is. But I mean, yeah,
but
it's
to me, when I look at you, it can go two ways. I look at you and I see a black man. And remember, in the black gene, we can create light skin, even if I'm a dark skinned woman with another black man can create
still
a
have
light
light skin.
skinned baby.
I've seen it.
So
It
yeah,
happen.
so a full black man can
And
look
even to
like
say that, I have buddies. You know, for the most part, it doesn't happen this way. But I have buddies that are also mixed. So white mom, black dad, and their kid, you know, have kids with a white person, and their kids look more black than they do. I mean, it's
Mhm.
genetics. So, yeah. Is it what you look like? Is it your percentage? Is it how you? Is it your culturally? I guess what is the definition? I don't know. I was laughing because Marlon Wayans, who I think we all would agree is a black actor,
Mhm.
he'd had a little podcast where it was like live where he found out that he was like 25 or 30% white. He's like, what? Like he was in disbelief. I mean, but he didn't grow up as a mixed person.
Right.
He's not mixed.
So so that's where it's just not there's a lot of nuances and even just you just saw how my like explanation just changed because it's not just one thing. It's like and I was just, you remember what I told you earlier? I grew up in Iowa just like you and had identity issues there because I'm in proximity. I'm around all
A lot
white
of white
people.
people.
Yeah, you're the
No,
only.
and I think
And
a lot of Black people in Iowa have that. I don't know if
I
everyone's
wonder.
accepted that, but I have noticed, like even when I go to bigger cities or go visit my family and wherever, and I'm around all Black people. Like last summer, I was in East St. Louis. There was not a white person within 50 miles. It felt like anywhere you went, to the come and go, to the store, the cashier, the whoever. There was no white people. And I felt like I fit in. Like I felt like no one double took at me, no one stared at me, no one had these awkward silences and didn't know how to act. Like that's where I felt like and I didn't even grow up around these guys, you know? So interesting. There's so much. I feel like I could just babble forever.
Well, I know that you have children and your wife is Caucasian. So
Yeah.
how do you guys navigate that? What does that look like and how?
That's an even a tougher. I feel like that's even tougher than me because
Yeah.
I at least have the physical features or some, and my kids are very light with straight hair. But in a weird way, they're around more Black culture than I was because I'm bringing it to them. I didn't have somebody bringing it to me. So a lot of my friends that come over or their kids so they're around culturally a little bit more than I was, but physically, so it's almost opposite. Physically, they don't look the same as me. You know, I don't think most people would think that they were Black if they saw them in a room. They might think they were mixed with something, but they might not know. But I will make sure that they see my perspective. You know, I don't think they're going to be treated the same way I was or experience the same things I did, but they will be more informed for sure, culturally at least.
Yes, and that's what I love. Like I think about like even my nephew, and personally, when I look his parents on here, when I look at him, my nephew looks white passing to me. He's starting to tan up a little bit, but
he got tan this summer.
Yeah, he's getting tan. He's tanning up. But I was like, thank God that he has like, you know, Bree's done a good job. She knows my brother is a Black man. You know, some people get together and they're oblivious that their partner is Black. That's dangerous.
No, it is. That's very dangerous.
It's dangerous.
And I think it's dangerous, very dangerous when the Black person in that relationship not allows it, but goes with it and doesn't. You gotta, there's a difference.
There's a difference.
There's a difference.
Yeah. So I was like, thank God Kingston's mom. And then my brother is a positive presence in his life. And then just seeing all you dads together with your kids and seeing these Black men with their kids and their family, I would say it's a very great example. And I love seeing it.
No, I do too. It's fun. And I love having my kids around it. And it's funny, like my kids, I told you, they're white passing, but we had this Drake had his new album, Certified Lover Boy, and it's got all these different women on it that are all different colors. And I was pointing at my 4-year-old, he was 3 at the time. I was like, where's dad at? And he points at this Brown's kid mom. And I said, where's mom at? Points at the super white mom. I said, where are you at? And he points at the brown kid. You know, so he is, at 4 years old, 3 years old, sees himself, in a certain light already. So yeah.
Another thing I was thinking about, like what is like on the Black side, what is Black? So like even just like growing up in Iowa, like I like rock music. There's a certain culture that you like certain stuff that would be considered white.
Sometimes I like even a little bit of country music.
I like a little country.
Not a lot, but a little bit.
So then have you ever been faced with, and I have been saying, oh, you're not Black enough, or you like white stuff, or why can't we be like everything?
No. What we were talking about earlier is we're the only culture that I'm not in all these other cultures, but that I see where you're not Black enough, or this, like you have to do this to be Black. What? Nobody ever said you're not white enough white people don't have that same issue. Like they can like whatever music they like. They can watch whatever music they want to watch. They can eat whatever food they want to eat. And no one's going to question their whiteness. We're the only culture that goes, oh, you haven't seen this movie? You ain't Black. You don't do this. You ain't Black. What? That doesn't even make sense.
I like a lot, but got a lot of that. But if you're exposed to like stuff like people who live in farms and countries, and you're going to, because that's your demographic, you're gonna like
Who you're
those
around.
things. But did you ever feel a transition? Because I had went to school with so many white people that later as an adult, I would say as an adult, I probably have more black women friends than white.
Mhm.
I don't know. I actually really just don't know why, but I tend, I
Because
do.
you just, I think it's you. I think subconsciously you draw into those people because you can relate to them.
Mm-hmm. So but at first, I'm gonna be honest. There were some instances where I felt intimidated in a large group of black people, and I actually was like, "Low key scared of my people."
Right, because of where we grew up.
Yeah.
I've caught myself. I don't. Sometimes like, I'll catch myself being like competitive, like like subconscious, like, oh damn, I'm trying to compete with this dude just because he looks like me. I've caught myself doing that, or I've caught myself acting a different way, which I'm not even doing it on purpose, but because of okay, I'm around a bunch of black people and I'm not used to being in this environment. Do I need to act a different way, or
Mm-hmm.
do I need to do this? And I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I don't like questioning myself because I do know who I am. But when you get in certain situations, sometimes you catch yourself slipping a little bit,
Yeah. And
So
it takes time to, get to know who you are as a person. That's just takes time. But now they have all these DNA testing where now, because with us, there's so much because of the slave trade and everything and the mixing and stuff. Unfortunately, we don't know
we don't
where
really have a place
our
to go
lineage.
back to. We don't
We
have
don't
like
have a place to go
a
back
home
to.
like a home base. Like, oh, this
Yeah.
is
And we had to create our culture. We had to create things and make it happen. Where sometimes I was in Puerto Rico. I'll tell this short story. This guy, he's black man, but he's Puerto Rican because that's his ethnicity. That's where
right,
he lives, And he was, giving us a tour of the rainforest, and he talked about how he was so proud of his culture, and he went through everything, and I like teared up. I was so sad. Like I was like, oh man, like
like
he
what,
legitimately knows where he's from.
right? And like you said with the mixing, like what even black Americans don't relate always because they're so different. Like you might be 14% Nigerian and I'm 17% Cameroonian and he's, you know what I mean? So like that doesn't even match up.
Yeah.
So it's like, where do you go back to? Is it just the culture we created here in America?
Mm-hmm.
Is that black culture? That's what I think a lot of times is like
Yeah,
almost
it's black culture. I would say that.
is what like we've created here in America. So yeah, you got nowhere to go back to. I've
No.
never felt like there's like a place where I can go back and do some research.
But yeah, when I took my DNA test, I always joke I'm 38% Nigerian. I am. It's not a joke, but I was like, my best friend was like, "Girl, I knew it. She's Nigerian." She goes, "I knew it. I knew it." So,
Right. So then, just to not to get too far off topic, do Africans? Because I know my answer. Do Africans look at African Americans differently?
um, yeah, because you got to even think. Just in my opinion, I will say, okay, I'm gonna only speak from my perspective. I've dated a lot of African men, mostly African men.
Really? Okay.
Yes, and that's who actually gravitates to me.
Okay.
They've said stuff about me being American and stuff because we are technically different cultures.
Right.
We're different. So it's like being in an interracial relationship. Either I adapt or
Right.
I don't. But I'm like stuck, where do we meet? You know? So it's
Right.
still like being because culturally we're different, especially if I go over there with them, it's going to be a culture shock. I have to learn the ways, and I'm going to probably still be stuck in some American mindsets and thinking.
But you think about it, even genetic. Sorry to cut you off. Even genetically, a little bit, you're different. Like this guy's like 100%. If you're from Africa, most of the Africans I know are like 100% whatever they are, whatever country they are. Every generation was Nigerian.
Mm-hmm.
Like even like genetically, we're all a little bit different here in America than someone from Africa or a certain country in Africa. I had a boss at one point in my life who was white, and we try to have open conversations and talk about real life things. And he said, and he was being genuine. He's like, honestly, like I've caught myself, like if I saw a group of black teens, like American teens, black American teens, I would think, man, those guys are probably up to something. Like just standing on the corner, like maybe I'm gonna avoid them. Like he thought maybe they were up to something. He's like, but if I saw a group of like Africans standing there, I wouldn't have the same thought. Like I wouldn't feel the same way. I wouldn't think the same way. So I think even like there's a difference, you know, about how maybe they're treated versus African Americans.
And I even think like I've talked to some African people, not to get too far off the topic, but they felt like, you know, they come here, you're a foreigner, you're black, and the disrespect that they get here, you know. So it's like all these everybody has all these things,
and if you grew up in Africa, you didn't experience, like the N word does not mean the same thing to Africans as to African Americans. Like I've caught that. Like it doesn't mean
true. But I think if I went back to Africa, I think I would I believe I'd be welcomed, very welcomed.
Right.
I really believe that would be the experience.
I don't know. Trevor Noah, he's a newscast guy who's mixed. He's from South Africa. You know who Trevor Noah is?
Yes, and he did a thing where they went to his grandma's house. I think she passed away. So sweet.
So he's mixed. His mom is white, his mom is black actually. Mm-hmm. That's another thing too. I want to go down white moms, black moms. Another thing, keep that in mind. So he's mixed. He's like you're not. He's like, I feel like black people don't accept you unless you're famous, is what he said. And he's obviously a celebrity. He's like I've never heard anybody call Bob Marley mixed. I've never heard anybody call, you know, Lenny Kravitz mixed, or I don't even know the list of people. You know, he's like I noticed that once I got famous, people started accepting me a little bit more. So that's just a side piece that I wanted to point out that, and I've caught that. Like I've never heard anybody call J. Cole mixed. You know, he's a black rapper. You know, Chris Brown or whoever, you know, all these different people, whatever. But I just thought that was an interesting point, you know.
Yeah, it's just like there's just so many layers, and I can see how it can be so confusing and hard for to identify. And
what's weird is because I don't actually have a problem identifying as anything. I know who I am. Like it's what other people think about me. You never convince me that I'm not a black person walking around in America. No matter what you say, you'll never convince me that so you can say whatever you want. So I think it's how other people haven't quite figured out how to deal with mixed or biracial or and then going back to what is mixed, like that's a blanketed term. I don't have anything in common with someone who's Japanese and Indian. So that's a blanketed term, mixed. But I think we all have an idea of what our mind goes to when we think of mixed. We think, or at least I do, black and white, I think, just because of where we live. But so
I was looking up like the different like terms. There was biracial, multiracial, multi-ethnic. It was just a lot of like just more.
It breaks it down like technically, like, but going back to the slave days, like my kids are a quadroon, which sounds, I don't like the sound of that word, but like because they're a quarter. So like there's so many different terms and layers and what people, label people as. So
I do have an interesting question because I've been like just kind of like I went on YouTube to see some people who were talking about being biracial and kind of what their thoughts were too. And there was one person talking about like during, we've gone through a lot in the past couple of years with the pandemic, and then also everything what happened with George Floyd and all the things that now, because we have cameras now, these things have been going on, but now they're on camera. How did you navigate when that was going on? How did you navigate even with your white friends and then being being a black man? What were those conversations? Were there any people you had to let go because it was you're a racist?
You learn a lot about people real quick. Like my instant instinct, and maybe this isn't the right way, because then in theory I'm using a little prejudice myself. I listen to the black person story first because of what I've seen, what history has told me.
Right.
So A lot of times I want to, I do, and then I try to step back and go, okay, what actually happened here, Josh? Don't just use emotion here. But you'll hear as soon as work is like the worst place to figure out who you're working with, because as soon as something like that comes out, you're like, hold on, that's how you think? Okay, let me step back just a little bit. Mm-hmm. So people, I've heard, and I'm sure you have too, but I've heard so many. You hear like these little low-key racist tones, undertones, or comments, or there was some I wasn't even talking about. I'm just sitting there listening. In this group of my white salespeople was talking, and this guy's like, "Hey, did you hear that this pregnant black lady was pinned down and like basically beat to death by the police because she wouldn't cooperate?" And I'm like, pregnant black lady? Like, who's messing with the pregnant lady? Like, she's pregnant. Like, I don't know the story, anything beyond what I just heard. And the old white guy, well, we need to hear both sides. Like, that's his natural instinct is to, instead of going,
beat up pregnant people.
Right? He doesn't know what happened, but his first instinct is, well, what did this pregnant lady do? Like, and I'm like, what? How is that your initial instinct? Is what did she do? Like, I don't know.
Like, is the baby okay? Are they okay? Are they alive?
Are they alive? What happened here? And like, it's just weird to me to think that that's like your first, thing, like the George Floyd thing. Mm-hmm. Let's say if you could, in a vacuum, take away race for just a split second. Mm-hmm. Why are there people that are okay with an American person being kneed on for 9 minutes and 48 seconds? Take away race. Like, why are you jumping on that side? Like, you should be afraid for yourself. Like, why are you okay with this? Well, he had a counterfeit $20 bill. What?
Does that warrant death?
Does it warrant death? So, yeah, if you get, and I try to ask people, like, take away race for a second. Like, are you cool? Like, the one that always still gets me is Martin. It was like, remember 10, 12 years ago? That one still gets me to today. Like, he's 17 years old walking home. He did nothing wrong. And there's people that are like, I said, like, what if that was your kid? Would you be okay with that? Like, are you cool with that? Like, you think that was okay? Well, what was he doing? He didn't do anything.
He was walking.
So I get passionate about it. Sorry if I'm talking.
No, I do too. I'm like very like just about like protecting like black men and any man of color, because especially you were saying like how you were walking around being you and your brother 200 and something pounds.
You tall, we stick out.
You're automatically a threat. They're gonna, and you guys are just kids.
I have so many stories going back, like growing up in rural Iowa, that we would get, me and my brother, like we were good kids. Like we weren't, I could admit if we were getting in trouble, so we never got in trouble. We were good kids. We did what we were supposed to do. We'd get followed by police for no reason. We get pulled over. Well, why did we get pulled over, officer? Suspicious driving. Like, what does that mean? It's just we're cruising around the 4-block town because we got nothing else to do. Suspicious driving. I dated this white girl my senior year of high school, and probably 15, 20 white dudes burnt a cross in her front yard because she was burnt across. This is in 2010. This ain't that long ago.
And then where do you get this cross? Like they just sat and made.
They just manufactured this, right? Like the hate is real.
They say hate sounds so silly. If you break down what hateful people do, you're like, that's dumb as hell.
Like you really just went and made a cross and burn it just because you hate me for standing here. But I'd walk through. There was nothing like more nerve-wracking than being like, we'd be like on the road or whatever for a basketball game or a football game, whatever, like walking in to the school, like, because I would hear stuff. So people would yell the N-word at me from the crowd or from the stands or whatever. And like, I think that's part of the reason I never go back there. I don't ever go back. My mom comes to me. I don't go there. But like, it was such an uncomfortable feeling everywhere you went. You'd walk into a grocery store and people would just like stare at you. Like, what are you staring at? Like, okay. Like I try to stay away from that.
And, when I was about like protecting, you guys is when the George Floyd thing was going on, my friend was arguing with someone. Well, she was talking about there was comments and there was a white lady trying to advocate for this black man, but he just wasn't having it. He basically told her to stay in her place. And my friend She might hear, she's biracial, and she said, this poor woman, she was trying. I said, did anybody message this brother and ask him if he was okay?
Right.
He's
Right.
hurting. So even just us protecting you is just asking you, are you okay? And just, but when I said this to her, she was like, oh, I didn't think of it this way. I think
Mhm.
sometimes asking people like why they think the way they think. I mean, some stuff I just don't even care at this point. I'm not
You
trying
just
to
have to brush
attack.
it. You can't argue. You know what I mean? You can't.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue, but
And I've caught myself like where it's a little bit exhausting sometimes because I always want to try to stick up for us,
mhm.
but you can't
Yeah, they're going to
because
think they're
it's
going to think.
so and it's so and it's very frequent. So I'm like, sometimes you just have to like sit there and just listen to something, and you're like, hey, just take it.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
you got to pick where you're gonna. Like in high school, I could have fought somebody every day, but what was that gonna do? It was just gonna make me look bad. So, and I even remember in high school feeling like I had to be extra good because of
oh,
who I was, like go out of my way. Well, like I remember like I'd get like excited after a dunk or something, and my coach would be like, hey, calm down. Like, you know, you're like the only tall black dude here. Like, we don't want people, you know, the refs to draw attention to you or whatever. And I'm like, damn, I'm 16 years old just playing basketball. And I got to worry about what the refs think because
that's exhausting.
it's exhausting.
It's exhausting. I was watching something where they were talking about how maybe even culturally, like black people and white people, we might mourn differently. Like it was an example of at this hospital. She said some of the black people, when somebody had died, and they was like falling out, like people were screaming, they were losing it. They were like the black people, and the instinct of the hospital was to call security. These people didn't need, their loved
Right?
one was killed.
It's dead. And they're
That's
like, they're
exhausting.
mourning.
They can't. They're
Well,
supposed
they're
to
being
tell how
loud.
they're acting because somebody died.
And
It's
that is one thing that I've always said, like, I don't think, because we, no matter where you go, like white people can get away from black people. They can. Like, you can go live in my hometown and never deal with a black person ever. But like we can't. I can't. Like if I go to Walmart, everybody there, all the customers, all the employees for the most part is white. And if I go to the bank, they're all white and all my coworkers are white. Like you can't, so you have to kind of deal with it, but they don't even understand always, like you just said, like how you feel or how where you're coming from. And
mhm.
even me growing up with white people, there's certain things that it's hard for me to understand their perspective or their view of things. And how do you not see where I'm coming from? And
Mhm.
you do get exhausted a little bit.
And you're like, okay, it's exhausting. And the crazy part is just it's so many layers, and it's not a easy.
Right. And we were just to kind of get back into the kind of the mixed biracial thing. And it is becoming more prevalent.
Mhm.
Is more and more, I think, in society. Like, you know, Des Moines is a very white city. I know
Mhm.
you've been here. You used to live here. But I think I could be wrong. I think in Des Moines it's like 3 or 4% black.
Oh.
That's not, it's not very big. It's a
Mhm.
low percentage. And then you have to think about that being mixed, biracial, whatever, is even obviously less than that. So like
Mhm.
the percentage of me walking, there's not a lot of people like me walking around here.
Mhm.
So it's yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and I like that you're, with your family, they're gonna have you as a representation and just to be able to navigate. And then
Right.
as, you know, I think I think we're getting to a place where we're communicating more, and I just hope
Trying to get
things get better and people are okay with their identities and not being put in a box. I would love for racism to go away.
yeah.
That would
I
be
don't know if
nice.
that's gonna happen in our lifetime, but
No, no.
quick story that I just thought of. Sorry, before I forget, is speaking of white family, like my white cousins, my 21st birthday, they're from Omaha, so they're like, hey, we're gonna take you out downtown, show you a good time. So I got a white V-neck on and a flat bill hat. That's it. You know, I look okay. I'm not wearing anything crazy, doing anything. And we go to walk into this bar, and the bouncer says, hey, you can't get in. You got a white V-neck, and those aren't allowed. And you got a flat billed hat, and that's not allowed. As he's sitting here telling me this, it was like, it couldn't happen more perfect. 3 white dudes with the exact same outfit walk right past me and walk in. And it was, my cousins were like in disbelief, like, what? They're like, he's like, they're right there. They're walking in and they got the same outfit. And it was a little bit of a relief for me to see them see it, because you tell people things and they don't always believe you or think, racism's over. That was a long time ago, which it wasn't, but that was a long time ago. Slavery was a long time ago. To see like the look on their face, to see it happen right in front of their eyes, it was like, okay, thank you. I'm glad you guys just saw that. Like, you think I'm just making stuff up, like right there. And it was just like, it was cool to see, I guess cool, I don't know, but like, it was good to see them recognize
right.
what
The light bulb goes off, because when you don't see it,
right. And it's
yep.
the same thing with the dudes that burned the cross in the front yard. My girlfriend at the time was like, oh, Josh, you're just being silly. Like, that stuff. This was before that. And then it happened. And she's like, oh, I was wrong. Way wrong.
So, yes. So overall, I guess kind of just to wrap things up,
Yeah.
like, what do you want to pass on? Okay. Well, what would you say anyone who's in an interracial relationship and they're going to have biracial children?
You have to, everyone cares about their kids. Everyone loves their kids. I mean, like, it's just natural, but you have to go out of your way to see this kid's, like, especially like, I'm going to use white moms because that is what I see here. That's just what I see. You have to go out of your way to understand how your kid's going to be treated, how they're going to be viewed. You can't just assume that you know what I mean? Like, you have to make it a conscious effort that they're different. You're going to be treated differently. Don't treat them the same way as your sister treats her little blonde haired, blue eyed kids. Like, you got to treat them, go out of your way to make an effort. Yes. To understand.
We gotta acknowledge we're having biracial kids. We can't say.
And I have biracial friends my age, so in our 30s. Again, I think we're some of the pioneers of biracials, because we were like the beginning of like when it was started being okay. Like, they tell me things that their own white mothers would say that are just blatantly racist. Like, I remember my mom used to make us like, what's this cream you put in your hair to like make it straight?
You put a relaxer in your
relaxer. She'd make me put like and like, looking back, I'm like, why'd you make me put a relaxer in my hair? Like, that feels a little bit like you just trying to make me fit in. I don't know. Like, looking back at some of the things that I had to do to, the clothes she would put me in just to make sure that I didn't I'm like, it's okay to accept that you got mixed kids or black kids or, and appreciate who they are.
I love that. If it all could just be appreciate who they are. But you know what? It starts with the parents. When your parents install that, they'll be fine. I think I think that, like, this generation, I think we're talking more and we can install the traumas that we've suffered. We're acknowledging trauma. Where some of our parents, our grandparents, you sweep it under the rug. We're actually acknowledging it so we can,
And one thing about, and I don't want to just harp on white people, like, black people need to make an effort to understand that this person is more when I hear a black person say, well, you're not black, you're mixed. To me, that's worse than a white person saying, and what I mean by that is because I'm actually really experiencing a lot of the same things you're experiencing. So what do you mean by, what does your statement mean when you say, well, you're not black, you're mixed? Like, what do you mean by that? What is the undertone behind that? So yeah, I think that, you go to, if you're gravitating, toward, and people are pushing you towards this one side, and then that side goes, well, we don't quite want to accept you either. That's almost worse.
Yes. And that is, and I agree with that. Cause like, when black people say, oh, she's just a little white girl. Or a white boy, or say,
what do you mean by that? What is
what is it? Why? Or she doesn't act. It's more of they're more in tune with their white side. And, and when you see some biracial kids, they're trying to connect. Right. And so black people, we cannot.
And it's hard to, like,
culturally. They need us.
culturally being raised by a white woman, it's going to take a little more to be culturally see your black side. So yeah, you like you said, don't push them away. Understand
Way.
they
Being
don't
a
see.
example. You know,
Mhm.
I have godchildren and they're all biracial women, but I'm the black woman example.
Mhm.
So I'm
Just
always
for
going to
I,
love on them and tell them
if,
how great they are. And
right. If I could, and maybe it'll change as time goes on, and there's more mixed and biracial people. Like even in everyone was making fun of the draft this year, the NBA draft, because there were so many
yeah,
black dads with white moms coming out, and there was all these mixed kids getting drafted, and these kids are getting roasted from both
yeah,
angles.
yeah,
And I'm like, that's kind of crazy to think that really nobody's really accepting
yeah,
these kids. Like, it's supposed to be the best day of their life, and they're getting roasted because
yeah.
of their parents. And even like one of the things that I wanted to point out earlier was that I'm seeing is, and it's not as common, but the black mothers.
Mhm.
Sorry, do we got to get off? Am I
No, no,
babbling?
no, no. Go keep going.
Black mother's white dad, that combo gets a little more respect, a little more love than the white mom black dad combo. I have noticed that. I
You think
have
so?
no from the
Well,
black community though. It's from the black community.
can I say this? When I was young, I dated white men, and I got crap for it. It wasn't, and so black women,
From white people.
no, black people.
Black people,
Black
really?
people, yeah, like you with that white dude. That I dated this white boy, and this guy said to me, "You be always be with that white boy." I said, he ain't scared of y'all. He will fight you. Please don't.
Leave me
Like
alone.
he will really fight you." But
I saw somebody say there was a difference, and I'm like, "What do you
well,
mean there's a difference?" And they said that white. Again, some of this is just social media. You can't read too much into it, but
yeah,
just um, that white mom, black moms tend to put the black culture on their mixed children more so
I believe that.
than the other way around, because I hate to say it, a lot of times in these interracial relationships that I've seen growing up, it's the white mom raising these interracial kids.
Mhm.
So they put their presence and their culture on them.
Yeah,
So that's kind of what I saw.
that's yeah. That's just because I've noticed some mixed kids that had a black mom, they grew up more around black people, and they could be. It don't matter what shade they are. They're just more comfortable, and it's
You,
proximity. There's
you
in
know, and talking about shade, or
mhm.
um, sometimes you don't even know. Like I have my little notes here. Like one of the things was from my what shades, like mixed kids, like they literally come in like as cheesy as generic as it sounds, like come in all different shades. Like I've seen mixed kids that literally you would not know they were mixed. You might think they're 100% white. They
Mhm.
got blonde hair, blue eyes, but their dad is full black. And
Mhm.
I've seen mixed kids that you would never even know that they had a white parent. They
Yeah,
have 4C hair, they're darker skin tone,
yeah,
black facial features. So not even all mixed kids can relate.
yeah. Isn't that crazy? Because now on top of that, you got colorism, even with
You have colorism within the black community, and then you have your own. Yeah. So
yeah. So it's just
even
oh
being mixed doesn't mean you relate to somebody else being mixed. I don't experience the same things as Logic, the rapper, he looks like he's white with white hair.
oh yeah,
He
yeah.
always gets made fun of. I'm
He
like,
does get a lot of
what's he
crap,
supposed to do? He's mixed.
right? No, one thing I wanted to touch on, I about another reason, probably you said in your perspective, black moms and white dads are couples, they don't get as much flack, where I think we get criticized in the black community more so about it, but statistically, black women don't date outside of our race in high percentages.
I've
So
always wondered, and I feel like being in Iowa, like
mhm,
there's, and my wife knows this. I've always said black women are just absolutely beautiful, but I just wasn't around black women.
right. And
I didn't like. I would never say I'm into white women. It just happens to be. 95%, 99% of the women I'm around happen to be white.
mhm,
So, do you think that? Do you think? Because I've noticed black women here still tend to more so date black men, and
yeah.
they have the same percentages as that I do, or any of us do. So, do you have to go out of your way or is it you don't feel? Do black women not feel like they can connect with a white man? Like, well, I guess I know I'm going off topic, but I'm
Oh,
kind
no,
of.
no, no. Okay, this is what I'll say for myself. So growing up in Iowa, there was racism, like just tons of stuff. I felt like the blackest bitch alive. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like when I was in
Right?
these spaces, like I'm like,
That's
but
how I
so,
felt.
yeah. So being with when I would date these white guys, I was uncomfortable because I was in a mindset that um a lot of that white people were racist, had racist undertones. That's just because of my experience. I mean, I don't think that across the board, but that's when I was young. That was my experience. So when I would date these white men, I felt uncomfortable. I felt like I just felt off. I felt like the blackest person in the
You got
world.
to
And
meet
then
their family ever? That was worse. When they
no,
didn't know.
they did. Well, one guy that I told them that, my boyfriend would beat you up. His mom actually was he had sisters that were biracial, and he's a white guy, but
Okay.
he ended
His
up
mom.
marrying a black man. So he was exposed to black people, so he was not scared of black people, and he always dated black women. So he
His
was the only
mom.
white guy I felt comfortable with because he understood the culture. And
Right.
his family was a mixed blended race family. That's the only white guy I've ever felt comfortable with. But outside of that, it's just those I always just get scared of those little like undertones
The
and
worst
just
was going to meet the family. Like if they, because they didn't. I would ask. I used to ask, like, "Hey, do your parents like no?" Like, you ever see the movie Guess Who with Ashton Kutcher
yeah,
and Bernie
yeah.
Mac? He's like, "Did you tell them?" And she's like, "What? Tell them what? That I'm white." She's like, "You're white? What?" Like, I used to try to set them up. Like, "Hey, did you let your parents know that
Yeah.
I'm coming over?" And like, I remember I went over to meet this girl, and it was actually me, her, and one of my close friends at the time. We go up, knock on the door. It was literally just like that movie. Like so he reaches, the dad opens the door, reaches out to the other guy who happens to be white and says, "Nice to finally meet you, Josh."
Yeah.
And
Oh,
like to the white dude. And I'm standing like, actually I'm Josh. And the look on his face, like,
oh wow.
because his daughter didn't tell him. And he was like, "Oh, well, hi Josh, like nice to meet." But it was just like he was so caught off guard that I was the one coming home with his daughter and not this other guy.
Yeah. So it's just been a tricky thing. Like, so yeah, I do think it's interesting. The lowest percentage, but black women are still dating. Yep, we just still date within, and it's the comfortability. We deal with some other stuff about how we look and our hair and this and that. Just like I made the comment, and when I made the comment, black is bitch, I'm not even talking about like complexion. It was just
No,
like
no, I know.
just so the audience knows, talking about just like like I'm just the all be all like because
Right? Because that's all they know. That's all they
yeah,
know.
yeah, like so
All
when
they
I'm
know.
in those settings, but
And
I
I
think
feel
that
this.
was just the hardest part. Those layers of like now you're dealing with appearances. I don't have what you're around, right? Blonde hair, blue eyes, this and that, and you don't look like that, and you're so it's just easier to you gravitate to a man that maybe can appreciate your own features. He's just like me, but then when you're living in Iowa and you're getting rejected because the black boys around you, they're so used to aesthetically seeing white
Right?
women that
I
they're
think
not.
I think black
Yeah,
women have it like tough.
yeah,
Just to be blatant, like
yeah.
tough. Like it. You just said it. Like there's so many more. I think about the things that I've had to deal with, or my friends have had to deal with, and then just to add a whole nother layer
Yeah.
to it. Like I've had black or I've had white guys say, "I've just never been attracted to black women." I'm like, and I call them out every time. I say, "How many black women do you know? Give me
Right.
give me two black women that you know that you could call up right now." "Well, I don't have any." I'm like, so how can you say that statement? How
Right.
you literally don't know? Well, Beyonce and I'm like, you're naming celebrities like that are like,
Celebrities.
that doesn't. You don't know any black women. Don't make that statement. You don't know any.
And then Josh, another thing plays in with us is colorism. So, I just us all being, different shades. There's certain things of me being a lighter complexion. I will not say I love my black women, and there's things I don't like guys. They'll be like, oh, your skin. If they no, I don't play that
That's a
shit.
red flag. That's a red
I don't
flag.
play that shit. Like, no, where we come in all different. all different flavors,
All
and
the
we
shades,
got yeah,
everything.
yeah, no, so
Hairstyle, hair texture.
hairstyles.
That's a big thing. Like that people don't understand is it just that could be your natural. People think that you straighten your hair or you do this. No, it could just be like you said. Black comes in so many different. It's not just one box of
One,
what black is.
yes,
I
it's
remember it was so insulting for so many reasons. I had a girl in college who happened to be white, and she said mixed kids are the prettiest kids. It must be the white in them. I'm
ooh,
like, how does that make sense? So you said, hold on, they're the prettiest, but it has to be because it's from whiteness. Like your statement made no sense. Like black and white together makes pretty kids, must be the white. That doesn't even make sense. And it was so offensive. Like I was like, where do I even start with tackling this statement?
and where do you see so many layers? We have biracial, full black, all black,
Uh, and then
gender.
you have
Yeah.
like, we were talking about my kids who are like 25, 30% black.
Mm-hmm.
What if what if I did marry a black woman and we had children? Would those kids be considered mixed? Or what if I would have had kids with a mixed woman? Would those what?
You know what? I have an answer for that one. Okay, since you're biracial, and if you had a baby with another black and white woman, your kids are still technically biracial. Actually,
right? No, they're
is
still,
that crazy?
yeah, they're still
Yeah,
50-50. They still,
yeah,
but nobody in the household's white. Nobody, they don't look white.
yeah.
They're supposed to walk around identifying as white. That doesn't make sense to me. But yes, you're right. No, I get what you're saying. Like
Yeah, it's just,
genetically, you would still be 50-50.
isn't that crazy? Like, oh, let me read some of the comments real quick.
Yeah.
Hold on.
By the way, thank you. I've had a blast.
Oh, me
Sure, we're
too.
leaving stuff out. So maybe later, as your podcast grows and you become the next Joe Rogan with millions of followers, maybe we can revisit this topic.
Yes, you can come on, and we can do it on different layers. I'm gonna do like panel stuff too.
That would be fun.
Like with some men and women and different issues. So yes, I will definitely. If you would be down for that.
That's a good point. So you should do that, dude. Get a couple of mixed people, black people, white people, women, men, and that'd be fun.
That'll be real fun.
Hear angles, hear what other people think.
Who do we have in here? So, okay, so Brienne says, yeah, people have to see it to believe it. Blows my mind. So when we were talking about some people can't believe there's race or understand it.
And then it happens.
Look, Brienne's the crusader. When people were saying crazy, she was correcting folks. She was correcting white people politely, but she was educating them. Right. She really was. So she that's her.
Those are and this isn't a good. There's no logic behind it really, but sometimes like when I see like a white woman with mixed kids or a black husband, I tend to think, even though I know it's not factual, I tend to think at least they're a little more open-minded and understand, kind of, because they've seen some things. But that's not even true. Like some of the most racist comments I've heard have been from moms that have biracial children. I'm like, how?
And those are the things we got to talk about, because that doesn't help with your child's identity.
Oh my gosh, that's the worst thing that could possibly happen. Like that's from your mom, who's supposed to love you no matter what.
Yeah. And then Brie also said it's the inability to look outside of yourself, understanding a different experience and perspective.
It's hard for people.
It's hard. It is so hard. And we all fall into that trap and like, okay, that's just not, I got to understand that's just not my experience. Let me hear you. Like,
right. Step back and listen. Okay, that makes sense. I haven't experienced that, but that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And then Selena says, I'm 40 and biracial. She said some other things. Oh, yeah. Okay. So Selena, and I told you that she had a white mom with 8 little biracial kids. And
8?
She did it on her own. Yep.
That's a gang.
That's a gang. The Malley gang.
The Malley gang.
And then Selena said, I've been related to most the black folks around me. That limited who I dated. Okay, so in her town, she's related to all the black people. So she just was saying
black people to date.
She dated white men because it just limit proximity and it limited
Right. Proximity, you got to make an effort to make your kids get, you got to be around people who look like you. I know that could sound bad, but you have to. You don't, you feel comfortable. You can relate. There's nothing more like just being around my Black friends. It's the only time that you really, truly, truly feel comfortable.
Hold on 1 second. I did not plug my laptop up properly.
Uh-oh, it came undone?
You're fine. I'm going to plug it in real quick.
No.
Oh, okay. Whew, there we go. Yeah, and that's why I was saying that's probably why, when I've grown up in Iowa and I think as I got an adult and, having to go through womanhood and coming into my own, that's probably why I do have a lot of Black women friends, just because the experience of being an adult and navigating in that world. Yeah, they've helped me navigate and having just girlfriends to like lift me up, that can understand, and we look alike and we get it. Right. And another thing, Bree said, appreciate diversity. It's a beautiful thing to be different. Yes, diversity, and even on the Black side, we have to appreciate diversity. People of different cultures, different music, different everything. We can't ridicule.
I love it. Like I literally that's one of my favorite things in life is like to travel, like seeing like just being in the airport and this dude's over here speaking French because he's actually from France. So this guy is like, I love being around different people. Like that excites me. Like I don't think like, oh, I need to get away from this person like some people do. Like I love it. Like I want to travel and I want to experience your culture and see how things that excites me. Like it doesn't like scare me. Like it excites me.
Yes, I love it. So it's both ways. All of us have to just embrace other people's cultures and their upbringings, because we can learn so much. It can open your eyes to things you never even knew you were interested in.
Right.
So, I play this little game at the end. So I'm going to ask you some questions and just first thing that comes to your mind.
Oh gosh, I'm scared. Hopefully these are hard questions.
They're not too bad. They're good ones. Hold on, let me scroll down. I have them on my. Okay, so it's my Divine Honey questions. So are you ready?
I think so.
Okay. What's your favorite word?
Oh, I'm supposed to be quicker at this, right?
Yeah, but no one's ever quick at this, Josh, ever. It pretty much goes like this. Because I'm catching them off.
This is a cliche word, but I'm going to say family. Very cliche, but it really is. It's true.
Very true. What is your least favorite word?
The N-word. I hate hearing that word. I can't even see how quick that came. That word gives me like every sense in my body like tightens up if I hear somebody say it. Like, and I'm going to say it if I hear a white person say it. Not a Black person. If I hear a white person say it, everything in my body tightens up like, okay, I'm ready to go.
What's your theme song? What song represents you?
In West Philadelphia, born and raised. I don't know why, but I grew up like idolizing Will Smith and like feeling like I thought I was Will Smith. So we'll go with the Fresh Prince theme song.
Nice. Do you forgive Will?
Do I what?
Do you forgive Will Smith?
For his slap?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgive him.
Yeah, I forgive him too.
I love
Will Smith. He's,
You can't.
What sound or noise do you love?
Oh, that's tough. That's tough.
That's a tough one.
Jeez. We'll go with like the sound of like when you're getting ready to, you're so pumped for vacation. You got on the plane, you've been sitting there for 20 minutes. You think the plane's never going to go, and then it finally starts to go off. Like after you forgot that you were going somewhere, and you hear and you start that sound of like I'm going somewhere, I'm doing something. Like the vibe that comes with it.
Yes. What was the next one? What sound or noise do you hate?
The sound of like it's 3:00 in the morning, you're slightly drunk, you were trying to fall asleep and your kid's crying in the crib and you got to wake up and go feed them. That's the worst sound. because you have to do it. Like there's nothing you have to get up and go. You can't just say, oh, you can eat in the morning. You got to wake up and feed your kid.
What motivates you?
Cliche again, but go back to family. Like the whole thing. The reason I get up every day is so that my kids don't have to. I didn't grow up with a lot, so my kids don't have to not have the things I didn't have. Same things that I didn't have. So my kids, family.
Nice. What's your purpose?
These are also relatable. My purpose is to, like, just Josh Harris. What I do well, and I have learned is the reason is that I'm here is I love spreading positivity, encouragement, giving someone, like, I feel like I'm a hype man. Like I give people that didn't think that they had a big reason to do something. Like I listen, you can do it, like a motivator, like that type of person, like encouraging people and pushing people. Like, I don't know what the word is, but that's my purpose.
I like
lifting
that.
people up.
Lifting people up. And what legacy do you want to leave behind?
I want people to look back and say that I was a damn good father, that I was a good husband, that I was like the friend. Like, I don't want to have people that I don't want to leave behind gossip. I want Josh was like a legitimately good dude. Like he would do anything for you. Like, I want people to look at me in that light. Like, I'm there for you. And
so everybody has different belief systems, but I like to ask if God, universe, wherever you get to the pearly gates, whoever you see, what would you want God, source, energy to say to you at the end of your life when you cross over?
You did it. I put some obstacles there, some big obstacles. I made it a little bit tough for you, but you did it. Like, you made it. You didn't fall for some of the stuff that I set up to tempt you, but you made it and you did what you're supposed to do.
Oh my gosh. Well, Josh, I want to thank you for coming on, and I look forward to having you back when I do that panel. I think you'd make
I want to be back. Don't forget me. Don't forget me.
A great addition. I want to thank everyone who's watch on the replay as well. I want to thank you, Brianne. Thank you, Tim. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in and listening to us.
Selena, for your comments and questions. And
so, should I share? Can I share this, or do I need to share the link to the podcast?
No, you can share. You can actually just hit the share button on your episode.
This YouTube video, will it share to, like, my page?
Yep. Once I stop in the broadcast, it'll just show as a regular video, and then you can share it. You can share it. You can take it as a link, or you can just hit share and it'll copy the link. Awesome. So what else do we have? So, and just so everyone knows, we also you can listen to the episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And you can listen to old episodes, but this episode will be uploaded in about 20 minutes. So, and if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please, because you don't want to miss any of the other Divine Honey episodes that we have. You want to share this one and listen to this one again. And then I have other cool videos as well. So, Josh, again, thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Do you have any parting words for our audience?
Are you going to be back in Iowa anytime soon?
I will be back in November, and I will be there for a while. I'm staying, I'll be there through Christmas, through Thanksgiving, and
through the holidays and stuff. Okay.
Yeah,
awesome. Yep. Nope. Continue. Don't. Just keep pushing. Like, this was a blast. I think if you get the more people you can get on here, it's fun to do. It gets people thinking, and just keep growing your platform.
Oh, I appreciate you. Thank you, and thank you for coming on. And everybody, until next time, peace and blessings.
Bye.
Bye, guys.